Some other key points that I would really like to make on this is to take risks. I remember when I first bought this software for $400 or $500, I was thinking to myself, would I make this money back? Would it be something that I can actually profit from? And obviously it turned into, because that was a lot of money for me at the time. And obviously it completely paid off. The other thing I would say is don't get caught up in your own opinions and mindset towards things. When I first started this, I would not have believed that someone would spend $40 per month, let alone $120 per month. And at the start, I was really quite shocked when these customers were coming in. $40, it was because I didn't have any money at the time. $40 is a very small amount of money, it really is. And there were people a lot richer out there than you who are in very different situations. So test your pricing. Pricing is generally something which is quite emotional, and we come at it from like our own standpoint. Funny enough, one of the least tested aspects on most e-commerce sites, particularly in the software as a service industry, is pricing. People just sort of make it up at one point when they're first setting up the company and just sort of go along with it. But it's a terrible, terrible strategy. So test out pricing, go higher, and often you will find there's a really good book called Selling to the Affluent, I believe is the name, where it talks about selling to like the higher classes of society, the people who have money, and how it can often lead to more revenue, working with clients who are just easier to work with in quite a lot of ways, because if they don't value the money quite so much, they're not so focused on getting like a return on investment. And like often you'll find, in fact in pretty much every business I've had, that the customers who spend the most money are the easiest to work with, which is just something quite interesting to know. So it's something to be wary of. By trying to go for like the cheaper customers and think that you're doing yourself a favor by coming in as one of the cheaper products on the market, you may actually be shooting yourself in the foot. And often it can be more powerful to come in with something more expensive, and rather than someone thinking, oh, why is this product so cheap? It must be because they've cut corners on things, or the quality isn't as good as the higher level services, which is generally what most people will think. Instead, if you take the opposite direction and charge more than the market, people will just, it's a cognitive, I really think it's like a cognitive bias where value is associated directly on price. So if you charge higher than the average market value, people will just immediately look at you and think, why is this service more expensive? It must be better, regardless of it being better or not. And you did, like I said, I didn't even make any changes to the product at all, to the service people were receiving, but there was a difference in the number of sales that we had. And I personally noticed, not through any type of data tracking, but I was the one who was handling all of the customer support. I personally noticed like a very big difference between the type of complaints, the volume of complaints that the lower cheap customers have, the ones who are on the lowest plan or who joined from the start, compared to the ones who were paying like the highest amount. And the people who were paying more money were like much easier to work with, and if they did have a complaint, it would tend to be a much more reasonable, maybe isn't something like more like reasonable complaint or something like that. Whereas often when you're selling to like the bottom, the cheapest levels of the market, you're selling to people who are expecting everything for nothing. Whereas the higher levels of the market, often I found they're looking for like a much more specific solution. They're very happy when they get it, and they have money, so they are happy to spend that money if you solve a problem for them. They're, in my opinion, they're the type of people that you really, really want to be working with. Yeah, I think that's like the main takeaways I have. Nonetheless, it was an interesting journey. I have absolutely no regrets about it.